Digital marketing is one of the most valuable skills you could ever hope to learn, but it can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming and hard to stay current and up to date on all the latest and greatest changes that are taking place in the world of digital marketing. After all, it pretty much doesn't matter where you look, there always seems to be a new strategy or a new tactic or a new social media channel that you're supposed to master. It's hard to differentiate between the ones that are actually going to work and the ones that are just going to waste your time, your money, and your energy. And that's why in this episode, I'm going to be breaking down 5 different strategies that have been proven to work across different markets, businesses, and industries. But here's the deal. Before I unpack these, it's important that you know you don't need to do them all. In fact, you probably shouldn't. Rather, you want to focus in on the 1 or maybe 2 different strategies that sound like they have the best alignment and the best resonance with you and your business and the goals you're trying to achieve. You're far better off doing 1 or 2 things incredibly well than spreading yourself too thin and doing a whole bunch of things kind of below average. So with that said, let's take a look at some of the best strategies that are not only working right now, but are going to be working well into the future, starting with number 1, YouTube marketing. Now here's the deal. Obviously, I can't hide my bias when it comes to YouTube marketing. After all, YouTube marketing has been very good to me and to my business overall. But it goes much deeper than that, in that pretty much every single client and every single student that I teach and that I work with, and we guide towards a YouTube dominant strategy, well, they seem to get incredible results from it. And I'm not just talking about building massive channels with thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or maybe even more followers. No, I'm talking about even very small channels with just a few videos on them. And the reason that this works is because next to being face-to-face and in-person, well, video really is that next best form of communication. It allows you to see somebody, to sort of judge their body language, hear their voice, and essentially just builds a whole lot more of that know, like, and trust factor than almost any other medium. So video is important, and it's not just YouTube that says this, but pretty much every single other social media network out there, from Facebook to Instagram to LinkedIn to clearly TikTok and a whole bunch more, are prioritizing video content above pretty much everything else. So if you're going to be making video, well, then you should probably start with a YouTube-focused strategy. And here's the big reason why. Actually, it's 2 reasons. The first of which is if you're just getting started on any other platform and you want your video to get seen by more people, well, it's kind of up to a bit of the fate of the algorithm and how they choose to prioritize your content over other people's. Yes, good content does rise to the top, and there are ways to sort of work with the algorithm to give them more of what they want, but there's also at least a small element of luck with many of the other platforms. Less so with YouTube. This is because YouTube has a built-in search feature to it. It's essentially the world's 2nd largest search engine, owned by Google, the world's largest search engine, so clearly they know a thing or two about doing accurate searches. This is why if you're just getting started with YouTube marketing, you can create videos that are for highly sought after search terms and really doing some keyword research, figuring out what people are looking for, what kind of content you can create, and then YouTube will work to actually put that content directly in front of new people. But it gets even better than that, because after you've built up a little bit of steam and YouTube has a better understanding of who your market is and what kind of people are watching your videos, well, they'll then go about showing your videos actively on their own part to more new people, which means that you put in a little bit of work up front, you kind of help train the algorithm to show your videos to the best people possible, and then they'll go to work for you. The other benefit of YouTube marketing is that videos that you create today can continue to bring in new views and new customers, and new clients, and new sales for your business for days, for weeks, for months, maybe even for years to come, which is pretty much unheard of on basically every single other social media platform out there. So if the thought of doing video marketing is of any interest at all to you, and it should be, then YouTube is a fantastic place to start. But to help you get the ball rolling, and to not only help your videos do better at first, but also to help you get more search traffic to your blog or to your website or to any other kind of content that you're creating, well, the next strategy that I want to share with you is one that is working pretty much as well today as it ever has, and that is SEO, or search engine optimization. Now, I appreciate when it comes to talking about marketing and marketing strategies, there's all kinds of cool and fun and sexy things we can talk about, like YouTube and video marketing and building funnels and all kinds of other things around social media and content creation. And then there's SEO. Sad little SEO. Overlooked, ignored, and neglected. Not because it doesn't work, but because it's kind of confusing, kind of boring. After all, who wants to do things like research and optimizing websites and inputting code and rewriting tags and meta descriptions and headlines and URLs? I'll tell you who: the business owner, the entrepreneur, or the marketer who wants to make a lot of money. This is because the skills and the strategies behind SEO, though they do change from day to day and year to year, well, many of the principles are still pretty much working today like they were 5, 10, even 15 years ago. Essentially, SEO, or search engine optimization, is all about making sure that the content that you're creating, whether it's video content or text-based content or any other kind of content that allows you to put some words in there somehow, which is the signal to the search engines, well, it's all structured the right way. Now, typically there's a couple ways to do this. The first, and by far the most powerful, is on-page optimization. This really just means doing accurate keyword research, finding out what your market is looking for, and then making sure to include relevant keywords in the most important places. Typically, these are the title of the video or the post, the body and the main copy of the post or the video, as well as any URL structures or addresses or anything else that you can kind of find a way to put it in that's somewhat relevant without doing something called keyword stuffing. Keyword stuffing is basically when you just take the keyword that you want to rank for and you stuff it everywhere. It ain't pretty, and it doesn't really work anymore. And in fact, Google often penalizes you for doing just this thing. So avoid it and try to make it seem natural and conversational and as casual as possible, but still make sure to get it in there. All right, the next digital marketing strategy that you absolutely have to take into consideration into your business is none other than podcasting. It feels weird for me today to be talking to you about the importance of video marketing and podcasting. After all, we've known about the power of these things for many, many years, and yet some people still don't adopt them into their overall strategy. Now, partly this is because of perhaps a bit of fear when it comes to video or a bit of sort of technical misunderstandings when it comes to podcasting, but the reality is they couldn't be more simple, especially podcasting. Seriously, thanks to a number of different free podcasting services, as well as some basic DIY or do-it-yourself podcast editing apps, you can get started with a podcast pretty much today and start promoting and publishing content and reaching new audiences and tapping into new markets that you could have only ever dreamed of before. What makes podcasting so interesting, though, is the fact that when it comes to short-form content and short-form posts or short-form videos like you see on, say, Twitter or TikTok or even with Instagram stories or Instagram Reels, well, the amount of time that someone spends with you consuming your content is short. A podcast, on the other hand, is typically very, very long and can range anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, sometimes upwards of an hour or even 2 hours listening to you, basically having your thoughts and your ideas and your strategies and all of that authoritative content streaming directly into their brains. Again, I don't need to tell you just how powerful that is. I mean, given the choice between having someone, say, consume 15 seconds of your content or 15 minutes of your content, it's kind of easy to see which one is going to win. It's the 15 minutes. Now, of course, there is a downside to strategies like YouTube marketing and using podcasting as a way to grow your business, and that is that they typically take a little bit of time, and you do have to create a whole lot of content. So, is there a strategy out there today that's working to kind of circumvent these and provide you a bit of a shortcut to reach more people a whole lot quicker? Well, my friend, yes, there is. So let's talk about that next with one of the most controversial strategies that I'm going to be talking about here today, and that is Facebook ads, and more specifically, Facebook lead ads. Now, first things first. Back in the glory days of Facebook ads 5 and 10 years ago, we used to be able to get away with pretty much anything on our Facebook ads. We could say what we wanted, we could create the kind of content that we wanted, costs were incredibly cheap, and the cost to acquire a customer was also incredibly budget friendly. But as more and more people flooded onto the platform, as more and more people started investing in Facebook ads and starting to realize that, hey, these were actually a profit generating center, well, seeing as it is an auction-based market, the cost started to rise and rise and rise. Eventually, it just got a little too competitive and a little too expensive for a lot of businesses, so they started to move off the platform. But some still stuck it out and still remained, further trying to optimize their campaigns and their overall funnels. And then iOS 14 happened, which kind of decimated the Facebook pixel and all of the tracking that made it such a powerful platform in the first place. It was at this point that I started to aggressively shift a large portion of our overall marketing budget and strategy, as well as that of our clients and all of the students that I advise, away from Facebook and towards other platforms. But that isn't to say that there isn't still a few ways to make it work for you. The main one being Facebook lead ads. Now, full disclosure, back in the day, Facebook lead ads were terrible. They were just bad. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, they were cheap, but they also brought in really low quality leads, and they never seemed to convert. And well, we were able to make them work for some businesses in some cases. Overall, I just didn't like them that much. Then everything else got equally bad, and Facebook lead ads started to become more effective as more people were rewarded for staying on the platform, and more advertisers were rewarded for not driving people people off of the Facebook platform. And that's where we're at today. So by no means am I suggesting that you pivot everything and just go full in on Facebook ads once again, but if you haven't played around with them for a while, maybe test out Facebook lead ads for your business and see if you can make them work. The other area that we're still having amazing success with Facebook ads is with warm retargeting audiences. Essentially what we're doing here is we're taking the massive amount of people that we could advertise to cold, the people that have no idea who we are, and we're shrinking that way down to only marketing to people who already know us, like us, and to some level trust us. Essentially retargeting to people who have consumed some kind of our content, or visited the website, or watched some kind of a video right there on Facebook, which means we can reach them for pennies on the dollar compared to cold advertising. Of course, the key to optimizing your Facebook ad campaign, just like it is with optimizing your YouTube strategy or your SEO strategy or any other kind of marketing you want to do, comes down to this next principle, which is possibly the most important marketing strategy of them all. And it's not even really a strategy, but rather a principle or a fundamental that I'd strongly suggest you adopt from this point moving forward. And that is 80-20 your entire marketing. The 80-20 rule, also known as Paretos Principle, is essentially the rule that states that 80% of your results are going to come from just 20% of your efforts. This law pretty much holds true universally, given some kind of fudge factor on each side. I mean, it could be 90% coming from 10% or 70% coming from 30%. But the point is that the bulk of your results are going to come from a very small amount of your inputs. Clearly then, your job as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, is to find those small inputs that are giving you all of your results and do more of them and less of everything else. It sounds simple on the surface, but you'd be amazed at how many people ignore this simple but incredibly practical and actionable advice. So let's take a look at a couple examples of how you would want to apply this in your business and exactly where to start. My first suggestion would be to take a look at your customer base or your client base, really identifying those top 20% of customers that are responsible for generating 80% of your revenue. The flip side of that is there's probably 20% of your customers that are causing 80% of all of your headaches and customer service issues and nightmares. So maybe time to let them go. You have my permission. Next, when it comes to say your advertising, well, there's probably a select set of ads or certain keywords that are delivering the bulk of your results. So again, find those 20% of ads or of keywords that are getting you 80% of the results and get rid of everything else. And voila, just like that, an increased ROI. And when it comes to all of the different social media platforms out there, whether we're talking about YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or TikTok or whatever, the odds are pretty good that the bulk of your customers, your best customers, are probably only present and active on one or maybe two different channels. So go there and ignore pretty much everything else. This in turn is going to give you better results for far less time and money and energy. All right, next, a bit of a bonus tip for you. A study was recently conducted and found that 89% of business owners and of entrepreneurs and marketers wanted to increase the quality of their content marketing this year. No surprise here. Content marketing is one of the most effective strategies that you can use no matter what business, market, or industry you're in. So in order to help you make the absolute best content marketing possible, the next thing you're going to want to do is check out the video I've got linked up right here on the ultimate content marketing strategy. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video. Now, the way to do this is to create that content with the following structure in mind. First, you need to start with a very clear and very easy to understand headline or title. That's part one. Then